I know it's not quite done with the mission yet, right? But I mean, what you've already accomplished is pretty impressive, going from the Challenger Series to the finals. So I guess, I mean, how do you feel about kind of the way your professional life has developed this year?
One, thanks for coming. I'm grateful. I'm happy. I'm at peace. It's kind of fun. Like I forget that the Challenger Series are like in the same year. Being this fifth fight coming up. I'm excited. I'm dialed in. I treat it as another fight. Championship, $1 million, all that's great, but like I love to fight, so it's just like getting another opportunity to do a thing that I love this year. And before PFL, like right before I knew I was about to sign, and we're getting close. I said, be challenger to champion. If I had to go to the Challenger Series, or if I got to sign right away. So I've been saying that before, and actually, the week I got a corner Elvin Espinoza when he fought on that. So I guess like 2 weeks before I fought in the Challenger Series, and it's cool to be here now. Like working and speaking into existence. Everybody here at Kill Cliff, DK Fitness down in Miami. They helped me get here. My family, and I'm just loving it. I like the active schedule.
Awesome, man. You said active schedule, right? I think every fighter says, I want to be active, I want to be active.
Yeah.
Then you get 5 fights in a year, right?
Yeah.
Less than a year. I mean, when you look at it all together. So how challenging have you found that, or maybe how beneficial have you found it to stay that active?
I find it more beneficial than challenging. Like the challenging part is like each week, like each every 6 weeks, right? You have somebody new, or from the Challenger Series from me to the Corey Hendricks fight, like the showcase fight, it was quicker turnaround. But I like it. When I first started fighting, especially my pro career, I had my first 6 fights in about 5 months. So it's kind of similar to the PFL schedule, maybe just a little less spread out. Fought twice in 1 month. So like it felt like I was back in the beginning, and I love what I get to do. And I don't know, like I used to beg for fights, right? I was just, I remember over the past year, you probably see it on social media, me calling people out before I signed PFL. And then now it's like you don't even think about that. And it almost feels like, was that just a year ago? So I'm just grateful. It'd be cool if the season was longer, if we had like 6 or 8 fights, but I don't know how that would be done, because I guess you have to have an even number, right, to have like the right amount of fights in the season. But man, I'm just happy. I love it here. I said I'd probably fight another 11, 12 years. It'd be fun to do it all with PFL and stay active, and that puts you like at 48 fights, I guess, right? You do it well. So that's what I want. But it's on a warpath, and it's cool. So the challenge of it all is like, see, I don't have to cut weight, so I guess that kind of took that challenge out the way. But the main thing is just making sure you just keep doing what you love, right? Like you don't treat it as like the monotonous job. You just treat it the job that you're passionate about.
It feels like each performance has actually gotten better along the way as well. So do you think that's a product of staying as active as you have, or is it maybe just things clicking in training, the time that you spent here? Like, what do you credit that to?
I'd say it's a combination of everything. So you have the active schedule, right, and new opponents. So like you have people that are fresh and exciting. Like everybody that fought this season, man, much respect to them. Corey Hendricks was tough. Sawmill City, strong as an ox, right? Tim Karen walked out to a Mulan song. I thought that was pretty cool. And Martin Hamlet, like that's a big guy. So that was fun, and he's been at the highest highest level, or the highest point you can get to in PFL without making it. So just different guys, different challenges, and I get excited to fight. So it's like I just get it like, okay, this person presents this challenge, this person presents this challenge, and now like how do you impose your will and go claim victory? So just like when you love it, you build off of it, and it's really because of my coaches, dude. Like my training partners, everybody here is so challenging. You can see a training session on the mats, and this guy's fighting for a title here, this person's fighting for a title. They just got back from a title fighter. They're close, they're top 5 here, they're top 10 here, like, and then there are guys who've been people like Emiliano Sordi, who's been through that gauntlet. He did fight 5 times a year in that year that he won his title. So you can just like pick off guys' brains, so it just makes you more prepared. My coaches are on me. Like, they don't want me to be good, they don't want you to be excellent, they want you to be like perfect, and that's kind of thing that's something that you take into the fights, and there's always still something to work on. Like if you notice, if you look back at after the Martin Hamlet fight, before we even like congratulations, we were excited. Coach Dieter and Lentz were already telling me things I could work on, right? And that was like I'm like excited. I finished the dance, and I turn around. He's like, "Hey, no motorcycle riding. This, and this, and you got to work on this, do this, and get better." So it's constant growth, demand to get better, and that's what I love. Coach Jones, after the Corey Hendricks fight, I mean, we didn't even take the shuttle back from the Virgin Hotel, and I was like, what could I have done better here, and here, and they were happy we got the decision and all that stuff, but it was, what could you have done better? And I think you stack that on top of itself, and then you do that every day in the gym. This is why we're here,
That's awesome. We'll talk about the challenges along the way. What challenges does Josh present to you?
Yeah, Josh is, he's good everywhere. Josh is like, he obviously has his grappling pedigree in his background from college wrestling, growing up in a gym, a lot more experience than me. He's slick. He's a really good head kick. I mean, I like it. It's the way he sets it up is different than other people. Man, he's creative. He's funky. I think he just has fun. He's a loose guy. So it's like not every fighter's like that, and he's just himself. And he has very good coaches over at ATT. I think that's what makes this challenge even more fun. So like credit to Martin. He had a really good coach and Coach Sal and all those guys from Sweden. And Josh has the same, but in his own way. Guys who've been around it, they fought our gym's fought them. There's history there. So I think Josh has all that, and he just has, his experience on his side, and that's what I love. So.
Last thing for me, you said that, it's kind of just another fight, right? I feel like you've already won just by getting to where you are right now based on where you were. But what would it mean to take that extra step to win a title, to win $1 million?
Yeah, for me to get a title, get the $1 million, when that happens, on the 24th, it's affirmation, right? It's like, hey, like, it's a good thing I left accounting, right? And also just like, thank God he's called me to be here. It's affirmation that I made the right decision to move to the gym December 3rd, 2020, and be challenged by the best training partners and coaches that I can in the world. You're not going to like what they're going to tell you every day. You're not going to like how training feels every day, and that's what's great. So it's affirmation to me that I got into MMA not just to be another guy, not just to be another fighter, not just say, hey, at one time in my life I fought in a cool organization, and I got here, I started training when I was 24. I don't want to be like, that's the only pat on the back, right? It's funny, what's today, the 11th or the 12th?
Yeah,
11th today? Yeah, so like 3 years ago yesterday, I got knocked out by Buckley, and then today I'm here. So I'm just like, hey, like, MMA's growing, right? Like, I'm growing with it. So to me, it's just like, it's a testimony of all the people I'm around, and it's a challenge to get the next one, right? How cool would it be to get like 11 PFL titles, 12 PFL titles, right? Then maybe do a Super Series fight and call it a career. Like, I love to fight. Man, I was at that PFL France card. What an atmosphere. It'd be fun to do a fight there. Like, go more fights overseas. Just travel the world on an active schedule, and you keep earning your way up. So that's all it is. To me, it's really like, get this title, like, okay, like November 25th, we're back at it, and just what can we do to get better? What can we do to claim the next title, get the next one, and just that one day I'll look back on it, I'll be like, okay, we did something cool.
Elmer, I had a question. I see you, like, especially after you finish a fight, there's this signature dance.
Yeah.
You gotta tell us where that dance comes from.
Yeah, so that's called the mutwashi. And my family makes fun of me because I can never do it right. So in Congo, and my parents come like from, they're from Kinshasa in Central Africa, and any kind of party dance, they call it like your hip line dance is pretty much what they're calling it. But the mutwashi is just like a celebration thing. Like everybody, there's men, women. But every time my family has like a party or get together, they make fun of me because I can't dance it well. And then on the I never thought about doing it, but on the Challenger Series, I saw them in the crowd, and I just did the joke, like the inside family joke, and I was like, well, got to keep it going. And it just, after we get finished, this is something I do now.
Yeah, you gotta keep doing it. It's vintage,
I appreciate it. I guess I can't let it go now.
Can't let it go.
Right.
Another question for you. You talked a little bit about, like, you just made reference to the fight with Buckley and the journey here.
Yeah.
Talk a little bit about the difference, because you are someone, a lot of the fighters on the PFL roster have been with other organizations. Talk a little bit about what it's like now, the difference between being with PFL and your experience with other organizations.
Yeah, so being with another organization, right, and other organizations in general, what I like about PFL is, like, you get to earn your way to the top. I'm not saying nobody else does, so I don't get attacked for this, but I feel like in other organizations, whether it's like your following, your social media presence, which people have earned themselves, right, or their pedigree before they've ever been stepped in a fight, they're already getting bumped up. And you see some people do great and they rise up to the occasion, and some people fold under pressure. And it's not because they're not ready, it's just because they haven't really fought the fighters. Like, a guy has a great wrestling background, he gets pulled up and then he doesn't show out. Or somebody's great on social media, but they come in there, or they have like a wrestling, like WWE style kind of wrestling, and they get in there and they get in the fights and they're not really a fighter. What I like about PFL is, like, okay, go get this title November 24th. Come next April, they're like, hey, you got to go earn it again. And I think over time, it'll tell a great story about PFL that in order to be a champion, you got to earn it every year. And if they're trying to go make, I don't believe fighting itself is a sport, but if you're going to make MMA a sport, there's no, like, if somebody wins something in the NFL, they don't just say, okay, they're automatically champion next year, and you can just sit out and pick and choose who you want to fight. PFL, it's like whoever your name is drawn is your person, right? And I like that. So what I like about this organization is, like, everybody's super cool. I mean, especially as a growing organization too, like, I get to know people personally, and even when I was somewhere else, I was able to get to know people, but it's just different. Like, you feel more welcome. Maybe I've, like, had to grow up over time, but I like the idea that each year you got to go get it again. You never just got to kind of live and then say, I'm going to fight a year later, I'm going to fight a year later, I'm going to fight every 6 months or so. Like, it's come back, you're more active. They did, like, I saw some article where it's maybe like something that says how in PFL you're more active than typical people. Not many people are fighting 4 times a year anywhere. Like, this year for me it'd be 5, but like if you go over the title every single year, you're fighting 4. So I just think people say it's the most challenging organization, most challenging gauntlet in MMA. But I also think it too, it just makes you have to develop yourself, and that's something I love about PFL. I like the PFL Europe, I like the PFL Africa, I like the Saudi Arabia. Like, you see all these different things coming up, and it's making it more global, I think, than even other organizations, because it's kind of like that Champions League soccer style. Like, you have the elite of the elite teams, the Manchester Uniteds, the Liverpools, all those teams. You have teams coming up, and when people come over to global, you got to start seeing people bring their fan base from overseas, and it's kind of like, I feel like it's like the root of all fighting. Like, your tribe fights this tribe, this person does that, and that's what I like about it. So when I see guys, like, there's some guys in that PFL France card, like, they'd be kind of cool to fight them over here in the U.S. There's a guy, I forget his name, but I think I called him Bazooka, but it's not his name's like a nickname for him. But he knocked out this guy, and I'm like, man, I think he'd do well in the PFL light heavyweight division over here, and I'd love to fight him. So it's like, I like that challenge, where I feel like it's sometimes you represent your country and that's it, but you don't get to have the whole nation behind you. Like, when Cedric Doumbé fought, he shut the place down, and once he rises up and keeps growing, maybe put him on the global side, then you get to fight the best of the best from somewhere else, and it just, the leagues keep growing. And maybe if a guy's not doing so well here, they can go over to the Europe side or wherever and just keep building themselves up. So I feel like PFL just has so many different opportunities for you to grow, and they develop a lot of fighters, like Alexi Pagande, right? He's maybe not even 10 fights yet, maybe not even 5, but you just see him growing, and he had his first, like, more of a challenging fight, where you don't really get that stage or that opportunity in any other organization, I think.
Appreciate it.
Impa, you mentioned Buckley, and that was a pretty bad KO that you took. A lot of fighters wouldn't recover from something like that mentally. And here you are, as you mentioned, just a few years later, fighting for a world title, fighting for $1 million. Can you talk about your mentality after that knockout compared to your mentality now, and what that process has been like to get from point A to point B?
Yeah, so, well, one, when I got knocked out by Buckley, I don't remember what happened, right? So I was just like, what happened? What happened, right? But once I, got in the ambulance, and my dad's like, all right, go look at your phone. I'm like, all right, and I saw it. I was like, okay, good shot. But, I came in MMA to become a champion. If that was the route for me to become a champion, that was it. And for some reason, I didn't know then why that happened. I didn't pray for that to happen. Like, trust me, I didn't. But I was just like, all right, cool. Like, how do I rise up from this? My dad would always tell me, in order to know your glory, they first have to understand your story. And that was, like, I think, a big part of writing my story. My dad and I were in the ambulance in Abu Dhabi. We were going to the hospital just to make sure I was good. And I said, don't worry, Dad, I'll finish the next fight. I did, fought Sasha Palatnikov. But even with that, I said, don't worry, one day I'll be a champion too. And when I wrote my post and all that stuff, and people asked me about it, I still say this, like, play that highlight as much as you want. It's great. Credit to him. But, the day that I'm champion, play that highlight too. And on November 24th, I get to do that. So it was always like, that was the decision. Like, is fighting really that hard? Like, it's hard for sure. Like, you train and all that stuff. But, like, my parents come from another country where my dad was young. The place would flood to the second floor. So you have to take everything, bring it upstairs. And you're studying with kerosene lamps, or people getting killed all over. Like, there's everywhere, right? There's stuff going on left and right. Just like back in Congo, people here going through some rough stuff. I choose to fight. I get to. So because I lost the battle, the war's not over. For me, that's how I look at it. And I really respect Buckley. It'd be cool, I think, like, if you ever decide to leave where you are, bro, come on to PFL side, we can do it again. And, like, that'd be an honor. That's the challenges I want. He's a guy got a great shot on me. He wasn't lucky. For people who think it was a lucky shot, it was not a lucky shot. He set it up well. I caught that kick 3 times, and I paid for it. So, but it made me better, is what I'm really grateful for. And, it's all the fights in between, the sense of urgency you have in a fight now, all that stuff. I learned so much from that fight and just how to mitigate distractions. And I'm very, very grateful. So some things you go through just make you who you are today, and I think that was one of them.
Yeah. And obviously, as you mentioned, you want to become a world champion, but this is prize fighting, right?
Yeah.
And you're now in PFL, and you're literally going to be fighting for $1 million next month.
Yes, sir.
Not to get too deep into like fighter pay and all that,
You're all
but
good.
the UFC it probably takes a good amount of time unless you're
Yeah.
one of the top stars to make $1 million paydays. So are you almost glad that your career went the way it did? Because
yeah.
as I mentioned, it's hard to make $1 million in MMA, and here you are, fighting for that.
Yeah, for sure. I remember at the Bud Light room right in Atlanta, and I look at Coach Lentz and said, "Thank God the UFC cut me." So I was just so happy because I was like, man, like what other situation? It was challenging to get fights there. Like all my friends who are doing well, they're great. All the people who are doing well, the organization, I love people there too. It's like nothing against them. I'm just happy for me because who knows when I would have got that $1 million fight or more or less or close to it, right? And but it's also too because you get to share that with your coaches, your team, the people help you get there, and who knows like what kind of percentage I could have shared with them. So it's the overall bigger picture, right? So man, very, very happy. I had enjoyed my time there. I think that it just helped me get better. 2 Contender Series fights, 4 fights in the organization, and then here I am today. And all those things like help expedite my learning. So very, very happy. I'm not there anymore. Nothing against them, but I love PFL. Yeah, so I'm just glad.
Impa, you mentioned right off the top something that I found really interesting. You said you were at peace. Can you kind of elaborate a little bit on that? And what was kind of the key for you to reach that point of peace, as opposed to in the past where maybe you weren't so peaceful? Things were a little bit out of whack.
Yeah, so thanks. It's my faith won, right? So like I moved to a great gym. I have people that challenge me all the time. And for me, it's just like I don't seek my validation from all the other stuff, right? Like I'm happy. Like I enjoy all this. This is super cool. I remember I used to take videos of people getting interviewed or questions in the gyms, and I would say like, one day I'll be in that position. Cool, but I don't want that to be the thing that defines me. Like I just want to thank God because I'm not a perfect person, and He's given me a lot of grace. So now I just kind of get to live in that freedom and fight and do what I love. So like $1 million world title on the line, I'm grateful I get to do what I love. And like I'm like after the last fight, I was like, oh man, I should have trained on Monday. Or now it's like, okay, like 6 more weeks, we're almost there, right? But just being patient. Like I'm really just getting to do what I love, and I'm at peace with that. Like I know that like God doesn't define me based off fight wins or fight losses, how much money I make on earth, but just like if I represent Him properly. So times I haven't, times I have, like He's still giving me a lot of grace and pushed me forward in life. So I'm at peace to go do what I love and be free. And there's nothing like getting in a fight. There's nothing like really throwing down and doing what you love, and what a cool life I get to live, fighting in my underwear for a living. So I'm at peace with that, and just makes me very, very happy. And just talking to my pastor and just about being obedient and all that, like he's really guided me through a lot of it, and some like challenging things I've had to go through the past couple of years, whether it was in the car, being on the farm, all these different things. Like they just kind of helped me get better and like isolate myself. So all those times just like alone really, really helped me be closer to Christ. And then now I go into fights and I don't stress at all about them. So.
We spoke a few weeks ago over Zoom. You talked to me a little bit about how strongly you feel about potentially having a long-term future with the PFL.
Yeah.
When you first signed with the PFL, was that kind of in the back of your mind, like maybe this is a situation that could be a long-term solution for me, or is this something that's kind of developed over time?
No, yeah, with PFL, it's just like, hey, like I get an opportunity to fight there, and I get to stay active. Like I'll finish my career here. Like it wasn't one of those things where I started training when I was 24, so it wasn't like I didn't care if it was PFL, UFC, Bellator. I didn't care what organization it was. I was just like, let me fight, and let's see how this can go. I thought I was going to be an accountant, move to the United Kingdom, do some underground fighting, and that'd be what I would do. So I didn't really have like a game plan for fighting. It was like, okay, at that time when I was an amateur, and I talked to Coach Jimbo, shout out to you guys back in North Carolina. He's like, you could do so much better than that. And that's when I started thinking like, oh, well, if I'm going to get into this, maybe I should go become the champion. And then he was like, that's all you're going to focus on. And so now I get an opportunity to find a really cool organization, travel the world. I'd like to go that Ireland card after, and just start seeing different things that this organization is growing with, and help them grow too. If I can be like a representative or an ambassador in any kind of way. When you stay active, it's about prize fighting. Like, you get to keep earning money, so that's cool. It's a cool job where you stay active. You don't have to ask for it. It's so long as you earn it, and I'm all for that. So, once I realized that was like an opportunity in MMA, which I don't think you really get at many places. Like, you see guys who've been in PFL for years, they never got a title, but they keep staying in because they're just doing it right, never cheated, never anything else. They just keep showing up, and like, that's kind of cool. You don't really, MMA is not really like a career where you have job security unless you're working on the other side of it and you just keep doing great. But organizations have fallen, they've stayed, and with PFL as a fighter, you almost get, I think, as close as you can right now. As things grow more in MMA and as like the world of MMA refines itself, it's like one of the few places you actually get some sort of job security, so long as you keep earning it, right? Go win your semifinal, go win your title, come back the next season, go do it again. And those who, like they say, the cream rises to the top, so you rise to the top, you get the title, is great. If somebody doesn't, they usually are still coming back the next season, and I don't see why I'd go anywhere else.
One more question for me. You've talked a little bit about your story, how just a few years ago, like in North Carolina, you were pretty much living out of your car, you were in a rough place, and now here you are. Like, what do you want people to learn from your story, your life, your career, they can use in their own lives too?
Yeah, so number one thing I would just say is, like, if you feel like God called you to do something, go for it. And everything else that happens in between, like, if he called you for it and you haven't feel like you've achieved your calling or like completed it yet, just keep your faith. And that's about it. It'll take you. Like, I can't really say like it's all me. Like, I'm not self-made. I got a great team around me, coaches who challenge me and push me every single day. Like, so as you step towards your calling and you really feel like you're being pulled to do something, whether you're a writer, whether you're a doctor, you want to be a great accountant, I don't know, like a journalist, like whatever your life is, shout out to y'all. You got to keep going because there's something in you that's telling you to go that way, and you don't want to get to the end of your life and then say, you're looking back on like, I could have been all this. That's not a fun place to be. So it kind of just made me at peace. Like, even when I was in the car, I was like, this is cool. I'd Instacart stuff to the front of the gym, go pick it up, and it's like, I know all this is going to pay off. I don't know how, don't know when or what day that's exactly going to be. I don't know it would be on the Challenger Series. I don't know it'd be back in San Antonio where you're like, okay, cool, like, you might be the title. But I did expect myself to be a champion. I expect myself to be in this time. I just didn't know what day that would be. So for any fighter, any person going through it, if you're in your car, you're trying to build your business and you feel like you're losing people, sometimes God just isolates you to remove certain things out of your life so that you can be prepared for when that time comes. And that's about it. Just keep your faith. That vision's there. Truly press towards it, and you might feel lonely sometimes, and that's okay because it's just going to get you closer to where you need to go.
Thank you.
To get you ready for Josh, who's been training for this fight, would you do anything a little different? You don't keep the whole game plan away.
Yeah, no.
Sparring with others and all, just to get ready for this big fight.
Not for sure. So, man, I've great training partners here. The guys I've always been going with, Delano Taylor, Jason Jackson, shout out to him. He's fighting for his world title the week before me in Bellator, so that's cool. I'm proud of him. My best friends, awesome training partner. You had Gerald Mearshart here. You have all these different guys. Gregory Rodriguez, Aaron Jeffrey, one of my best friends in the world, is in town too, and he should be up for a title fight soon. So, the crew, the grinders, the people that I always work with. Of course, I still have Coach Nick Lentz. Robbie Lawler's been my year. All these different guys. Coach Duda Navarro, see him every single day, right? We talk all day, every day. He probably gets tired of me. He's probably gonna block my number after the season's over. Henry Hooped and Coach Greg Jones. Just very glad to have these guys, and Sean Soriano. So that's the crew. I mean, that's like everybody I work with on a daily basis, and then whoever's at the gym. Like, I feel like what the cool thing about Kill Cliff and the gym that we have, you're gonna find every single style, every kind of way. And I think sometimes you focus on the fighter, and respect to Josh, very good fighter. But sometimes you have to also focus on what you do well too. So keep imposing your moves. So it's great to have all these different guys, but you can turn around and just like close your eyes and grab somebody in sparring and just be like, okay, like, how do I get better with you? So that's what I've been doing, and I'm very, very grateful.
I don't know as a fighter if this means as much to you, but when a big fight like this happens, and you have a fighter from American Top Team, which is literally 5 minutes from here,
Yeah.
a great training place, and another great training place here, does that add to it that it's American American top team versus Coach Cliff FC, or not really?
I think it's cool. So I get that question. But the cool part about it for me is that there's history there, right? From the Hard Knocks days to Sanford, to Kilcliff, and American top team like Coach Lentz, Coach Dieter, Coach Robbie Lawler now. Just funny to say Coach Robbie Lawler. They all trained that American top team at a point in their life. So there's some history there. I don't think there's necessarily animosity. I think people have, gratitude for the time they were there and where they are now. And it kind of made them who they are today. I like it. I'm very honored. I met Josh on the flight. Actually, I met Josh on the flight to Abu Dhabi before I fought Buckley. And it was just cool, hearing his story. I didn't know anything about American Top Team. I just got into fighting 2 years before. So, I knew of American Top Team, but I didn't know, how deep they were in MMA and all the champions they've created and things that they've done. And for me as a fighter, I've always wanted to fight the best of the best, or people who come from the best of the best. And fighting a guy like Josh and getting to represent a great gym that has Henry Hooft as our leader, who's built many great champions too. To be a part of that lineage is awesome to me. But also to fight a guy who comes from a great lineage, and also his dad being the head coach, what a cool, feather in my cap. Once we claim this victory on November 24th, and I think that's something that maybe you could take for granted as a fighter right now, because I didn't grow up in the Hard Knocks to this day. I came from North Carolina to here, but when you look on the wall right outside of here and see all these guys who've been there since day one, and they look at you and they encourage you and they push you, you're like, man, I am part of something special. And then, like I said, I think maybe 15, 20 years when I sit down and look back on it, I'll be like, dang, what a cool moment I got to be a part of, and I didn't orchestrate it myself, so I'm just happy about it.
And lastly, for me, you mentioned Delano Taylor and Jason the ass-kicking machine Jackson.
Yeah.
I'm wondering, have they got you into pro wrestling at all? 'Cause they love it.
They love pro wrestling. I'm not into pro wrestling. I've never been into it. I just think it's more fun to fight people for real. Shout out to all the pro wrestlers out there. Don't hate me, but they kind of did. I mean, I got to do a skit with Jason at the gym in Miami, and he's like, he ran me through it. So it was fun. They can tell you about wrestling in ways I didn't even know the history and the different storylines between people, but he'll teach you about it. And if you ever say anything disrespectful about wrestling, he lets you know. So I'm not into wrestling, but pro wrestling like that. But I think it's fun that my guys are, and I'm glad that I got to do my first skit. So yeah.
But
Hey.
heard fighters in the past say that sometimes they need bad blood with their opponent because it motivates them and maybe gets them out of bed on days that otherwise they might sleep in. And yet, here you are fighting somebody I don't think anybody in the business has a bad word to say about. Is that difficult for you? Do you need that extra motivation, or just all the same to you?
No, it's there's nothing bad to say about Josh, right? So it's and also too, anybody, if they don't like me, I think everybody in fighting is just trying to figure their life out too. I don't think fighters are the most normal people to start off with, so being one of them. And then I think that whether I liked him or if I hated him, I still have a job to do, and that's how I look at it. So I don't try to get distracted by emotion, trash talk, and that's why I respect him for who he is too. He's just a guy he likes his anime, he likes what he does. He's got a cool hairstyle. He does his thing, and I think that's what brings great fights. You remember when Brian Barberina fought Vicente Luque back in Arizona? Brian was a big mentor to me at the time, and I'm walking in the back, and him and Vicente are just standing next to each other. The two of the nicest guys in the world, outside of a cage. But when they fought valiantly. And to me, that was a cool lesson, because I just got to see two guys throw it down, put their full heart and soul into the fight till the very end. And Barberina maybe didn't even have to go for it, but he kept doing it. When I asked him, why'd you keep moving forward? He's like, that's who he is, right? And these guys, they just met. They shook hands, and they were cool. So, when you're a young fighter and you see that, it just keeps you in check. You don't need to get cocky and, have some stupid thing to say about somebody. Because maybe right now, Josh and I don't talk just because we never really hung out. We see each other every fight, and then now I got to make something up about him just to talk something. I don't need that motivation. I love to fight. I would fight my best friend. And then if you're really best friends with somebody or you really love them, at the end of the day, you'll still be cool, right? But if you don't like them for some reason, it'll come out. But no, I don't need that. My goal is to be a champion. Whoever's there, whether it's Josh, an alternate, somebody I know, care about, go get my hand raised and just God bless them after. That's it.
Awesome. Thank you, sir.
Thank y'all. Appreciate you. Thank you.